Hi everyone and welcome to the internet. What we're going to be doing in this lesson is having a look at the evidence we have for evolution. So hopefully by the end of this you're going to be able to describe the different evidence we do have for the process of evolution. Starts off, we've got 3 questions for you to have a go at answering in your books, so I'll give you a few minutes to have a go at that. So question 1, survival of the fittest means that the best adapted to the environment will survive. Give yourself a tick for that part, and a second mark if you pointed out that those that are not well adapted will die. Question 2, in the peppered moth, then we would expect dark moths, for 1 mark, to be more popular at the moment because there's a lot of air pollution from cars and factories, 2nd mark, which means that they're better camouflaged than their lighter counterparts, for the 3rd mark. Question 3, we're going to be talking about how the population comes to have resistance to warfarin in our rats. 1st mark is mutations occur for resistance. 2nd mark is for saying those with the mutation are more likely to survive. 3rd mark for saying that they then breed and pass on their genes. And the 4th mark for saying that over many generations all the rats would have the resistance gene. So add it up and give yourself a mark out of 9 today and write that in your books. So the first bit of evidence we have for evolution comes in the form of fossils. 3 questions for you to have a go answering in your books, on the screen first of all. So what we actually find then is that fossils are the remains of animals and plants that have become mineralised. And they're formed when those things died and then they became buried in the ground and the minerals deposited in them. And the last question there was the older fossils are found deeper underground. Because if you think about it, when something dies, it becomes mineralised, and then over the years more and more stuff builds up on top of it. So the deeper underground we go, the older the fossils will be. The reason that we can use fossils then as evidence for evolution is because as the fossils form at different stages over time, then we build up these different layers of fossils. And it's kind of like a massive timeline of planet Earth, because they form this sequence that shows us how these different organisms have gradually changed over all of these many years. So the key piece of evidence we've got for evolution is the fossil record, because we can see these gradual changes in a species not just happening in one or two species, but in a huge number of species. So it gives us the evidence that this is the process by which it happens. One more minute to get those 2 sentences written in your books. So if we look back at some of our oldest rocks that do have fossils in them, then the type of fossils we find are actually fossilised bacteria. Whereas if we look at the more recent rocks and look at the fossils that they've got, they tend to be more complex organisms. So jot down those first 2 sentences and then see if you can answer the question at the bottom. So what that actually gives us evidence for is that these changes occur over time in a species, and they start off as these simple species, and they've become more complex as these mutations have taken place over many, many thousands upon thousands of years. So we can see that life has evolved from very simple things to become the complex range of organisms we have on Earth today. The next observation we made is that plant fossils are found occurring before animal fossils. So jot that first sentence down and see if you can give me an answer to the question about what that provides evidence for. Hopefully what we said here is that it gives us the evidence that plants evolved before animals, because if the plant fossils are found deeper underground, that means that they were there first, before animals came into existence. And this could suggest to us that the plants provided something that was vital for the existence of animals. That may have been food, it may have been oxygen. Obviously we wouldn't necessarily know that just by working out plants came first, but it would go on to inform what we could then start to investigate. The next bit of information we get from our fossil record is that fossils show that closely related organisms have actually evolved from the same common ancestor. So not only do we see that there are changes within individual species, but we can start to build these kind of family trees, if you like, of how organisms have evolved over time from that one common ancestor. Let's have a look at one of these examples of a fossil record that we've got. We're going to have a look at the history of the horse. So what we can see on the screen at the moment is our early version of the horse, Pliohippus. Now we can see the picture on the right, the little drawing of it, that it was actually a grand total of 20 centimetres tall. So this is a little kind of pocket pony, if you like. And you can have a look at its shape of the feet that you've got there, quite different to today's horse, more spread out. If we jump forward a tiny 20 million years to 40 million years ago, we find Merychippus. Now we can see Merychippus is much taller, because if we have a look at our scale there, we can see that it's about kind of 70 centimetres tall, so much taller than our earlier version. And the foot has changed, so rather than having the 4 toes, we're down to 3 now. Moving forward to just 25 million years ago, we find Merychippus. Now, if we have a look again, we've got taller. You can see the scale in the picture on the right there. And the foot has slightly changed, but not significantly from our earlier version. A slightly bigger jump in time to just 7 million years ago now, and we find Pliohippus. So we can see Pliohippus on the right, and it looks kind of like our modern day horses. A little bit different, but much similar. You'd probably be able to look at that and say, well, yeah, it's a horse. But the biggest change, if we have a look at the foot, it's gone from having those 3 toes down to just that single hoof. So we've seen a big change in the shape of their feet. And finally, we find Equus 3 million years ago. And this is our modern day horse. So we know what they look like. You can see horses in a lot of fields around. And if you look at the foot, again, it's maintained that hoof-like quality, but it has changed slightly. So, have a go at summarising the changes that occurred to the horse over the past 60 million years, and then tell us how we know this is the correct evolution of the horse. Hopefully you picked out the 2 biggest changes were that they got bigger and their feet changed from obviously having multiple toes to a single hoof. And we know that this is accurate for horses because we've got fossils that show each and every stage of their evolution. So we've got the fossil record, which is fantastic for studying evolution that's already taken place in the past. But we can also study evolution in the present day by looking at some of these organisms that have a really rapid rate of reproduction. So things like bacteria and the Atlantic tomcod, which you can see in the bottom left there, are really useful for studying evolution because they've got this very fast reproduction rate. So that means we can see these changes that occur in a much shorter space of time than, say, 60 million years. And let's be honest, no scientist is sitting there for 60 million years studying a single organism. So by using these rapid reproduction organisms, we can study evolution in a much shorter space of time. So jot down those couple of sentences for me in your books. Something else that we can do with modern technology is we can actually carry out these molecular comparisons of things like the DNA and the proteins that we find in different organisms. Once we've actually done this molecular level comparison, we can identify the closely related species because they're going to have the most similar DNA strands and the most similar protein molecules. So by sequencing the DNA, by sequencing the different proteins, we can then compare them and identify those that are most closely related, and that tells us the species that are most closely related. Okay, so on the screen now, we've got a selection of organisms. Now, you might look at those and think, right, bit random here, miss, but what you're going to do is you're going to then rank these in order of how closely related they are to humans. Closest related first, and then work your way down to the least closely related. So have a go at doing that. I'll just give you a minute to decide. Just so we know, then the animals are the chimpanzee, the rhesus monkey, a rabbit, a cow, a pigeon, a bullfrog, and a fruit fly. Off you go. The way we're going to rank these then is based on the number of amino acids that are different in cytochrome C, one particular structure within each of them. Now the chimpanzee on the right hand side there, that one has a grand total of 0 amino acids different to our cytochrome C. So they're identical. That means chimpanzee is our closest relation. Next up is the rhesus monkey on the left. That one has a single different amino acid. The rabbit has 9 amino acids different. The cow is 10. The pigeon, only 12. The bullfrog is 20. And the fruit fly is 24. So hopefully you're not too shocked to find that you are least closely related to a fruit fly. So we've obviously seen that certain organisms will evolve over time. But there are some species that just won't adapt to their environment. And for those species, it's not great news, because if they don't adapt to the environmental changes, then they're going to die and they've become extinct. And quite a shocking statistic, I think, is that 99% of all species to have ever lived on planet Earth are now extinct. So there's only 1% of all species that have ever lived on Earth still present today. And what I've given you on the screen there are just some pictures of organisms that used to live here on Earth. Some you might recognise, some maybe not. So on the top left there, the good old woolly mammoth, obviously designed for the really cold conditions of the Ice Age. Bottom left is a quagga. Kind of looks like someone took a zebra and a horse and stuck the two ends together. Next one along is the Irish elk. Now I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd want to meet something with antlers that size wandering around. Next one along is the Tasmanian tiger, or the thylacine. And the size of that jaw, again, probably not something I'd want to meet in the wild. And then on the right hand side are 2 organisms that lived in the same place. They both lived on the island nation of Merychippus. It's the only place they ever lived, and that's why they're dead. So we've got the dodo at the bottom and the blue pigeon at the top. Both of them unfortunately living in only one place. When changes came about, they just went quick and became extinct. So those are some that became extinct in the more distant past, really. Now you might think that these are problems associated with the past, but it's not true. So the pictures we can see on the screen are organisms that will have become extinct in your lifetime. So what we have then, in the top left, we have the puuli, which went extinct in 2004. Next one along, the Madeiran large white butterfly, extinct in 2007. The rusty grebe, 2010. Down in the bottom left, we've got Spix's macaw, 2004. Middle bottom, we've got the West African black rhino, extinct in 2006. And then in the bottom right, we've got the badgy dolphin in 2006. Top right, we have Lonesome George. He was the last Pinta Island tortoise, and he spent the last 40 years of his life as the only one. And finally, he died at the age of about 102 in 2012. So extinction is still happening to this day, and we are losing more and more organisms as we continue to destroy the natural world. Obviously, one of the things that we can actually do is we can try to take some steps to intervene and stop some of these species becoming extinct. And one of those species that is on our endangered list at the moment is the giant panda. And I'm going to pose to you this nice little question. Are giant pandas too stupid to live? Should we stop intervening to keep them alive and let them become extinct? Well, let's take a look at some of the evidence then. The first reason that I'm going to argue that we should stop wasting our money on a creature like a giant panda and spend it on something that's much better is because they're so stupid that they actually fail to eat the right food. Now you might think, what? How can an animal fail to eat the right food? We all know giant pandas eat bamboo. 99% of their diet is bamboo. But bamboo has virtually no nutrients. And the giant panda actually has the digestive system of a carnivore, also known as a meat eater. So in order to actually maintain its existence, this creature has to eat about 20 kilograms of bamboo every single day. So that takes about 14 hours of just eating. That's my first reason. I think they're a little bit too stupid to live. Still not convinced? Okay. Second reason. They are lazy. Not just kind of teenage apathy lazy, we are talking so lazy. Because their bamboo diet gives them virtually no nutrients because they're so stupid they're eating the wrong food, then they've got virtually no energy at all. So if they're not spending their 14 hours a day eating, they're sleeping because they don't have the energy to do much else. Still need more convincing? Okay. Third reason. They're absolutely useless at breeding. They are so bad, it's just ridiculous to even comprehend. First of all, they live a solitary life. They live alone. So when it comes to the actual time that the female is fertile, she's got to find a male panda. And she's got to manage to do that between the 14 hours of eating the low nutrition bamboo and sleeping because of their lack of energy. So not an easy task. And just to compound that a little bit further, that female is only fertile once a year for a grand total of 24 to 36 hours. So not only has she got to find a male between her sleeping, her eating, his eating, but they've also got to coincide with literally a day to a day and a half to breed. And pandas are actually so unbelievably ridiculous that they fake being pregnant during captivity in order to get preferential treatment. So these creatures have decided that rather than actually getting pregnant, they can just fake it just to get preferential treatment when we've got them in the zoos in our breeding programs. We've actually got to the utterly ridiculous point of trying to save these dumb creatures because Chinese zoos now use Viagra and, I know it sounds really weird, but bear pornography to try to get them in the mood to mate. Who knew such a thing existed? Only in the world of a giant panda, apparently. So, really, really useless at breeding. Let's work on the assumption that by some sheer miracle of existence, they've managed to actually successfully mate. If they actually manage to give birth, the mother will quite frequently kill the baby. Because she's so dumb, she doesn't actually recognise that baby panda as her offspring. So we can see it in the bottom left there. That is a baby panda next to the mother. I kind of see why they don't recognise it really. Doesn't look much like them, let's be honest. If they give birth to twins, amazing. But no, these are giant pandas. If they give birth to twins, they abandon one of them. And quite frequently, when the baby is there, they will just roll over and they will crush that tiny little thing under their body mass as well. So even after they've managed to conceive and give birth, it's still not a guaranteed thing here. Let's assume, just by some sheer bit of luck, that baby wasn't killed by its mother, wasn't abandoned, wasn't rolled over and crushed in its early stages of existence. But those newborn pandas, they're kind of pathetic. Think about a bear, you're not thinking about the thing in the left-hand side there, that sad, pink, furless little blind thing. They're born that tiny, they're only about 100 grams, and they're blind. Now, they're really, really weak at this point, actually too weak to stand. It takes them 3 months of existence to actually walk a single metre, and they fall over. Now, all they're going to be doing at this point for months is eating, sleeping and pooping. So obviously, in the grand scheme of their survival rate here, it's not looking good. This is why in Chinese zoos, they actually employ people who end up dressing up in panda outfits and they've got panda nurseries. I kid you not. The picture in the bottom right is from a panda nursery where they hand raise these baby pandas just to give them this tiny chance of surviving when they're too dumb to do it on their own. So there you go. I've given you my reasons why I'm going to say, controversially, that giant pandas are too stupid to live and we should stop wasting our money on keeping the species alive. I think we should spend the money on better species that aren't so utterly ridiculous. You know, things like the many species of turtle in the sea that are going extinct because of our interventions as humans by building on all their beaches and so forth. But your turn. What I want you to do for your plenary today then is write your justification to the question: should we continue to spend $1 million per panda per year, that's how much it costs, folks, to keep that species going? Let me know what you think.